For today's geometry lesson, we're in section 1.4, learning about midpoints. We're going to apply midpoints to situations in the coordinate plane and also apply midpoints to situations involving algebra. So what is a midpoint? The midpoint of a segment is the point that divides the segment into two congruent segments. So in this example, we have point A. So we would say that A is the midpoint of BN. And we notate that these two are congruent because since they're divided into two congruent segments, we have the tick marks, just like when we have the word bisector. So we could say that BA is congruent to segment AM. So that is midpoint, two congruent segments. Our next word is we're taking two vocabulary words that we've previously learned, perpendicular and bisector, and we have the word perpendicular bisector. The perpendicular bisector of a segment is the line that is perpendicular to the segment, and it divides a segment into two congruent segments. So in our picture right here, we could say that TS, line TS, is the perpendicular bisector of segment EA. And we need to make sure that we have the correct symbols above each letter as to name it correctly. So if TS is the perpendicular bisector of EA, what must be true about angle TXA? So it goes in order. So we have from T to X and then all the way to A. We know that it is a right angle. And all right angles are 90 degrees. So now we have two midpoint examples. And again, midpoint, two congruent parts, two congruent segments. So it says that if B is the midpoint of AC, so we're going to pause real quick. We're going to put our tick marks right here in our picture. Then it says if AB is 3x plus 2, I'm going to write it in, and CB is 5x minus 14, find AC. So we're looking for this entire thing. I'm going to put a question mark there. Well, since we know that AB is congruent to BC, because of the fact that B was the midpoint of AC, I could set 3x plus 2 equal to 5x minus 14. We're going to go ahead and solve for x, plug it in, and figure out what the full segment is. So go ahead and solve for x first, plug it in, and find the final answer. So when you solve for x, you get that x equals 8. When we plug 8 into segment AB, we get 26. When we plug 8 into segment CB, we also get 26. So my final answer is to find segment AC's length. So we have 26 plus 26, which equals my final answer of 52. In number 2, we have A is the midpoint of SM. So we're going to go ahead and put in our tick marks right here. It says that SA is x plus 5. We're going to write in x plus 5. And then the full segment length, SM, is 5x minus 26. So we have 5x minus 26. Well, since we know that these two segments are congruent because of that word midpoint, I can go ahead and write in x plus 5 right here so that we have two little parts make up the full segment length. So we're going to go ahead and set up an equation. We have x plus 5 plus the other x plus 5 equals 5x minus 26. So we're going to go ahead and solve for x, and then take x and plug it into x plus 5. When you solve for x, you'll get that x equals 12. So in order to finish up the problem, we're going to find segment AM. So we have 12 plus 5 which equals 17. And that's our final answer. Perpendicular bisector. So it says that IA is the perpendicular bisector of segment FL. So we're going to go ahead and, since we have a perpendicular bisector, I can go ahead and say that this segment is congruent to this segment. We also know that perpendicular, the word perpendicular, means that we have right angles. So I did two things. My line cut the segment into two congruent segments, and FL was the segment. And then we also went ahead and put in all of the angles. So then we have that FN is 3x plus 5. So we have 3x plus 5. And then we have that angle INL. So from I to N and then ending at L. So this entire thing is 14x minus 8. Our goal is to find FL. So we need to find the entire segment measure. Well, even though one of these is a degree and the other one is a segment, they both share an x. So since they both share an x, if I figure out what one x is, I can input it to the other x. There's only one thing that we know. And the only thing that we know is that this angle is 90 degrees because of the word perpendicular bisector, particularly perpendicular, because perpendicular angles form 90-degree angles. So we're going to set up 14x minus 8 equals 90. A quick solve for x, so we have 14x equals 98. Once we divide by 14, we get that x equals 7. So we're going to take 7 and I'm going to input it into 3x plus 5. So we have 3 times 7, which is 21, plus 5, it gets me 26. So this is 26, which means that this is also 26. So the full segment, FL, equals 26 plus 26, which is 52. Moving on to our next activity about midpoints. So now we're given 2 points, A and B, and we need to figure out what the middle is. So what is the middle number? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go from -3 to 9, and we're going to count how many numbers are in between -3 and 9. And notice from -3 to 9, I'm going up 12 numbers. There are 12 numbers in between -3 and 9. So right here, I just went from my x to the other x. Then I have to do it again. We're going to go from 6 to 8. And notice as I go from 6 to 8, those are both y, and going from 6 to 8, I'm going up 2. So from here, I know that for x, I'm moving up 12, and for y, I'm moving up 2. For both of these, you're going to take half of it, because midpoint is half of the entire segment. So I'm going to multiply 12 by 1/2, and I'm going to multiply the 2 by 1/2. So we get that half of 12 is 6, which is a positive 6, and we get that half of 2, half of that positive 2, is 1. The final thing that you're going to do is take 6 and add it or subtract it from A, and then take 1 and add it or subtract it from A also. Because x goes with 6 and y goes with 1, we have to make sure that when we add or subtract it back from A, our numbers in A, make sure that it's underneath the right one. So my midpoint is at 3, 7. We're going to go ahead and do it again. We'll do number 3 next. So once again, I'm going from x to x. So from 4 to 9, I'm going up 5. From -10 to -6, I'm moving up the number line 4. So for x, we're moving +5. For y, we're moving +4. I'm going to take half of each of these. So So for half of 5, we get 2.5. Half of 4, we get 2. So now we're going to add and subtract from my letter A. So A is at 4, negative 10. I'm going to go ahead and do plus 2.5 underneath my y, and we have plus 2.5 underneath the x, plus 2 underneath the y. So we have my midpoint is at 6.5, negative 8. Go ahead and try numbers 2 and 4. For number 2, we have a midpoint at negative 714, and then for number 4, we have a midpoint at 9.5. For numbers 5 through 8, we have the midpoint is given and one of the endpoints of AB is given. Or we have to find the coordinate of the other endpoint and give our answer as an ordered pair. So this is doing a whole lot of counting, all right? So we're going to be counting from endpoint to midpoint, and then midpoint to the other endpoint. So we're going from x to x again. So from 5 to 6, I'm going up 1. So from 6 to my next endpoint, I need to also go up 1. So we have 6 plus 1, which is 7. We're going to do the same thing for y. So we have 12 to 15, I'm going up 3. So from 15, I have to go plus 3 in order to figure out the other endpoint. 15 plus 3 is 18. And this is my final answer. We're going to do it again in number 6. So we're going to go from x to x. So we're going to go from negative 2 to negative 3. We're subtracting 1. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. So I'm going to do negative 3 minus 1, which is negative 4. So x is at negative 4. And then same thing for y. We're going from negative 16 to negative 13, which means that I'm going up 3, because we're moving closer to 0. So we have negative 13 plus 3, which is negative 10. So my final answer for number 6 is negative 4, negative 10. Go ahead and try out numbers 7 and 8. My final answer for number 7, endpoint B is at 612. And then my final answer for number 8, my endpoint A is at negative 6, negative 3.